Well, guess what, YouTube Magic the Gathering fans? Wizards of the Coast says we need to go to war, and it's called War of the Spark. Apparently, all the Planeswalkers decided they wanted to come out and play. So, in honor of this momentous occasion of there being 36 Planeswalkers in a box of Magic cards, tell you what, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into a deck build for a Super Friends deck. Obviously, the War of the Spark set hasn't come out yet, so I may end up replacing some cards in this set, in this particular deck build, once the new set comes out. So for now, I want you to get a kind of idea on what I'm working on here, and tell me what you think. Reply in the comments. This is a bit of a modify of a deck I did previously, similar to this one, but there's been some changes, some updates, and I'd like you to check it out. So let's just jump right into it. Our commander is going to be Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. You can see that she has Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, you can proliferate, meaning that you can just add more counters to your Planeswalkers. And this card just went up in value. Originally, I think this was like a $10 rare. I do believe now it is up to $50 because of the War of the Spark set coming out. So hopefully you got a couple of these hanging around. You can keep one, sell one, whatever you want to do with it. Great card. Good for any deck build that will have Planeswalkers in it. So let's see what Planeswalkers we put in here. Now, obviously with the new set coming out, there may be replacements for these Planeswalkers that I have in here. Or, we may want to keep these. You never know. But I have a pretty good feeling I'll be switching out some and adjusting some of the ones we have. So, let's take a look here. We've got, in this stack, we'll just start with the first one. We got Vraska, the Unseen. Her +1 is until your next turn, whenever a creature deals combat damage to Vraska the Unseen, destroy that creature. Destroy target non-land permanent for a -3. Put 3/1/1 black assassin creature tokens onto the battlefield with whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Pretty annoying, huh? We got Venzer, the Sojourner. His +2 is exile target permanent you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So I guess I could take a Deep Glow Skate, exile it, and make it return and have it trigger again. His, of course, -1, his creatures are unblockable this turn. Pretty useful. And his -8, it says when you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, exile target permanent. Very useful. Next Planeswalker is Tamiyo, Field Researcher. Choose up to 2 target creatures. Until your next turn, whenever either of those creatures deals combat damage, I can draw a card. Tap up to 2 target non-land permanents. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. This is -2. Draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with you may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana cost. Pretty useful in a situation where you've got some aggressive players. You can start tapping down their creatures and things. Johnny Unyielding. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. Put all non-land permanent cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. And then, of course, the ultimate would be put 5 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control and 5 loyalty counters on each Planeswalker you control. Huge. I mean, if he comes in under doubling season and you can just pop him off like in a turn or two, I mean, it's just going to be Planeswalkers going crazy. And the next one, of course, is Liliana Vess. I can cause a player to discard a card. I can search my library for a card, then shuffle my library and put that card on top of it. Put all creature cards in all graveyards. Put those under the battlefield under my control. Very useful. I mean, obviously I could almost ultimate this card if I have doubling season out, so very useful. Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, put a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink into the battlefield. Good to have some blockers to protect your planeswalkers from ground attacks. You get an emblem with creatures you control get +1/+0. Destroy up to 3 target creatures and or planeswalkers. Return each of those cards. Return each card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under my control. So I'm going to start stealing some creatures. Tezzeret, Artifice Master. Create a 1/1 colorless Thopter creature token with flying. Good flying blockers if you need to protect your planeswalkers from air attacks. Draw a card. If you control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards instead. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent card, put that into the battlefield, and shuffle your library. Because I could get brutal really fast. Will Kenrath from Battlebond. He's a legendary planeswalker. Until your next turn, up to 2 target creatures each have a base power and toughness of 0/3 and lose all abilities. You could actually do that to a commander if you wanted to. Target player draws 2 cards. Until your next turn, instants, sorceries, and planeswalker spells that you cast cost 2 less to cast. Gee, very useful in a planeswalker deck, right? Target player gets an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. And of course, you can actually make him my commander if I wanted to, but I really don't want to do a mono blue deck here. Next card is going to be Tamio, the Moon Sage. Tap target permanent. This is +1. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Draw a card for each tapped creature target player controls. And you get an emblem with, you have no maximum hand size. And whenever a card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you may return it to your hand. Very useful. And the infamous, the well-known, and the hated, and the loved, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Well, I think you probably know what he does. I think this is one of those cards that if you see it come out, either hate that he's there, or you're just like, well, he's there, and we just get rid of him. So, in any event, I think you know what he does, but I'll run through these real quick. His +2 is look at the top of card of a target player's library. You may put that card at the bottom of that player's library. For 0, you can draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. Return target creature to its owner's hand. And then last, -12, exile all cards from target player's library. Then that player shuffles his or her hand into his or her library. Pretty much a game winner. You win the game if you get him to go off. Ob Nixilis Reignited, +1, you draw a card and lose 1 life. His -1 is destroy a target creature. And his -8 is target opponent gets an emblem with whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. Really useful. And the last one, or no, actually we got a few more. So we got destroy target planeswalker. So if somebody else is playing planeswalkers, you can just destroy it with this. Put a +3/3 black beast creature token with death touch into the battlefield. You can destroy target creature. You gain life equal to its toughness. Target opponent gets an emblem with whenever a creature attacks you, it gets +5/+5 and gains trample until end of turn. Pretty amazing. Garruk Wildspeaker, untap 2 lands. For his +1, his -1 is put a 3/3 green beast creature token on the battlefield. Good to have some blockers here to protect these planeswalkers. Creatures I control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn for his -4. Teferi, Temporal Archmage. Look at the top 2 cards of my library. I put one of them into my hand and the other in the bottom of my library for +1. His -1 is untap up to 4 target permanents, which is really good. Wow. You get an emblem with you may activate loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control on any player's turn anytime you could cast an instant. That's pretty amazing, especially in Commander. Just keep activating loyalty abilities. You're just going to go off on every single planeswalker. It's amazing. Alrighty, we got another one. Kiora, the Crashing Wave. Until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent and opponent controls. Her negative one is draw a card. You may play an additional land each turn, or this turn. Negative 5 would be get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, put a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token in the battlefield. That was a really good, useful card to have. Nissa, Steward of Elements. She's a +2, scry 2. The 0 ability is look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card or a creature card with converted mana cards less than or equal to the number of loyalty counters on Nissa, Steward of Elements, you may put that card into the battlefield. It's so useful for 0. Jeez. Untap up to 2 target lands I control. They become 5/5 elemental creatures with flying and haste until end of turn. They are still lands. Great card. And I do believe this is our last Planeswalker, Narset Transcendent. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a non-creature, non-land card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell from your hand this turn, it gains Rebound. You get an emblem with your opponents can't cast non-creature spells. This is, I mean, if you can ultimate all of these Planeswalkers, it's just pretty much, you know, the amount of win you got out of this is incredible. So the next card we have is going to be our creatures, which are typically here to support the Planeswalkers who generate mana. So we got Arena Rector from Battle Bond. When an Arena Rector dies, you may exile it. If you do, search your library for a Planeswalker card and put it into the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. This gives me a Planeswalker. Next one we got is Vigilance. Creatures can't attack you or a Planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. Basically, you're taxing people's creatures to attack you, so it's more of a issue to try to do you damage. True Name Nemesis. Battle Bond release card of a reprint, I believe, from, I want to say, Future Sight or something. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that was the set this came out in. As True Name Nemesis enters the battlefield, choose a player. True Name Nemesis has protection from the chosen player. Pretty wild, huh? So if you're in a commander game, you at least can, it's unblockable by somebody. Send Triplets. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent. This turn, that player can't play spells or activated abilities and plays with his or her hand revealed. You can play cards from that player's hand this turn. I was like, okay, that's pretty amazing. I think I'll take that. Next one, I mean, you figure it's going to have to be in here. Doubling Season. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. If an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those counters on that target permanent instead. That's huge. I mean, think about it. You know, in this deck, you know, once you start ultimating Planeswalkers and, you know, adding their loyalty counters, you're going to definitely buff them really quick. Now, Luminarch Ascension, it says at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Luminarch Ascension. Very useful in Commander. Obviously, it's a turn 2 card, so I don't usually take a lot of damage on turns 2 or 3 or 4. When you get starting to like 5, 6, and 7, then yeah, you've got a lot of stuff maybe coming at you, but you can probably get this to work, especially if once it goes around the table once or twice. Obviously, for 2 mana, you can create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. I would say that's really useful in a deck like this because you might have some flyers, and having a 4/4 blocker out there might be a good thing to have to protect your Planeswalkers. So, Sphere of Safety. Creatures can't attack you or a Planeswalker you control unless their controller pays X for each of those creatures, where X is the number of enchantments you control. Well, at least you got 1 when you cast this, but, you know, obviously there's more than 1 enchantment in this deck, so high probability I'm going to have at least 2, 3, or 4 on the battlefield at any given time. Another enchantment, whenever you cast a spell, I proliferate. I can add an additional counter of any kind to my existing Planeswalkers. Gets them to their ultimates a lot faster. As Foretold, I believe this is one of the best cards that came out of what is it, Amonkhet. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on As Foretold. Once per turn, I may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast with converted mana cost X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold. Commander games can go up to 10 turns, so you figure things start to become free really fast with this card if you get it out on turn 3. Pretty amazing stuff. Next enchantment we're going to do is the Eldest Reborn. That's each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each opponent discards a card. Put target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard into the battlefield under your control. So a graveyard means I can take it from my opponents. Even if I didn't lose any planeswalkers, I can just go ahead and get it from an opponent. That's amazing. So useful. Let's hit another creature. So we've got Birds of Paradise. Pretty obvious what it does. Just generates mana. And of course, this guy, they call him the fish. Why he's a thing? He's a thing. But apparently, Wizards, maybe it's a joke. I don't know. But when he enters the battlefield, I can double the amount of counters on any number of target permanents. Why they put it on this guy, I have no idea. Maybe someone can explain to me some kind of magic or the lore behind this as to why this manta ray just happens to be so OP. It's mana ray? Come on, I don't get it. Okay, so we have Consecrated Sphinx. Whenever an opponent draws a card, I can draw 2 cards. So it's like Rhystic Study, just, Rhystic Study on steroids, as they say. But, of course, it costs, obviously you can see it costs 6 mana. So getting it out might take a little bit, but at least you get a creature and you get something to do with it. Next is going to be Thief of Sanity. Bit of an experimental card. I want to see how it plays out in this deck, see when it becomes useful to flyer. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, I look at the top 3 cards of that player's library. I exile one of them face down, then put the rest into their graveyard. For as long as that card remains exiled, I may look at it and I may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast that spell. Very useful. Very useful. I was thinking, maybe I can attack somebody and try to get something out of their deck that I can use to block for my planeswalkers. Shalai, Voice of Plenty. Obviously, it's flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you have are hexproof. Can't hit a planeswalker if this is out, so that's pretty amazing. They have to attack this first, obviously, if they're going to try to shut down your defenses. And, of course, if I want to put counters on my stuff, well, sure I can. Really, I'm just using it for the planeswalker buff. It's pretty useful. Next creature we got is a Algothian Elder. Geez. Algothian Elder, I can untap 2 target lands. I tap them, untap a couple lands. Good stuff. And I've got a couple Battle Bond things here. I added these guys. You can kind of see why. All right, so I can partner with Toothy. Okay, there he is. Let's see. Let's look at this one first. If 1 or more counters would be put on a permanent my team controls, which is me, that many plus 1 of each of those kind of counters are put on that permanent instead. So it gives me an extra counter on my planeswalkers. And of course, this guy, you can see what's going on here. If he's in play, whenever I draw a card, I can put a counter on him. If he leaves the battlefield, if people get rid of him, I use him as a blocker to block off one of attacks heading into one of my planeswalkers. Well, guess what? I get to draw a bunch of cards. If he's got counters on him, I draw cards. And of course, Doubling Season doubles the counters. You see where I'm going. I mean, this is a really good combo in this deck. I mean, in theory, maybe you could make a planeswalker only deck now soon with just those 2. I don't know about that. I mean, especially if you want the Doubling Season in there. But, oh, well, it's green. Yeah, I guess they could put it in there. But that might be interesting. Now that we're getting more of colors of planeswalkers to add with War of the Spark. So we'll see how that goes. Magus of the Disc. He's kind of like I want to say he's a board wipe on a stick. He costs 4. He comes into play tap, but I can pay 1 if I want when he's untapped and then destroy a bunch of stuff. So if I have all planeswalkers out, I'm getting a lot of heat from a bunch of tribal decks and things. I can pay the 1, destroy all the artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, which, it might hurt me a little bit, but it might be better than dying completely, getting overwhelmed by heavy token build deck or something like that. Next, we got this guy. Now, some people ask me, well, why do you have that guy in there? He just seems like he's so crappy. I've actually done damage with this guy. I have blown up all kinds of really annoying artifacts. I've destroyed, soul rings with this, Thrawn dynamos, and of course that dreaded, for this deck especially, I've got to have a way to at least try to kill an artifact if you're talking about the Immortal Sun. If that comes out and I have no way to deal with it, this deck is pretty much shut down. I have to hope for creatures and hope that I can get rid of Immortal Sun. But if this guy's out and I can get that in, then I can get rid of that Immortal Sun and go ahead and just keep playing my Planeswalkers. So Ramos Dragon Engine. Flying. When you cast a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Ramos Dragon Engine for each of the spell's colors. I can remove 5 +1/+1 counters and get 10 mana. It's huge. 10 mana. Pretty much anything in my hand can come out if I don't have other ways to get it out. This one's just to add some more mana options for mana here. For each color among permanents I control, I can add 1 mana of that color to my mana pool. So, helpful. Let's grab some more enchantments. Rhystic Study. I mean, if you're playing Commander and you've got any kind of blue in the deck, well, I'm pretty certain you're probably playing this card. That is unless Wizards bans it in the format, but I think in 4-player Commander, it's very doubtful this will get banned, but you never know. Who knows? I don't think so. Let's just have some faith there. They won't do that. Now, here come the Oath cards. I do believe once the new set comes out, War of the Spark, these may tick up in value, so you might want to stock up on them right now while you can, because I think they're going to go up in value here really soon for people making modern decks and stuff with Planeswalkers. So we got Oath of Nissa. When Oath of Nissa enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature, land, or Planeswalker card from among them and put them into your hand. And put the rest of them at the bottom of your library in any order. One of its static-based abilities here is you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast Planeswalker spells. So useful, just so useful, especially if you, need you're 1 color short on a Planeswalker you need. Well, that will fix that problem. Oath of Jace. When Oath of Jace enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Then discard 2 of those. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry X, where X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. So I can pretty well stack my deck and build whatever kind of attack I want, whatever kind of planning for card draws and attacks I want to do. Oath of Ajani. When Oath of Ajani enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control. Planeswalkers with I cast cost 1 less to cast. Very useful for cheaper Planeswalkers, and I do have some creatures utilizing +1/+1 counters for a variety of reasons. And there's doubling season, so there is some interesting opportunities that go along with doing that. So now we got Oath of Teferi. Again, I think this card, because it is a Dominaria card, I believe it may still be in Standard when War of the Spark comes out. I could be wrong, but better get them now, because when War of the Spark comes out, I'm pretty sure this card's going to probably double in value. When Oath of Teferi enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent you control. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You may activate the loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers you control twice each turn rather than only once. Jeez, really? Really? With some of the other stuff going on in here, I could just activate the loyalty counters on other people's turns and then activate them twice, and then they double how many loyalty counters. It gets really broken really fast. Oath of Liliana. When Oath of Liliana enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Useful. The beginning of each end step, if a Planeswalker entered the battlefield under my control this turn, I can put a 2/2 black zombie creature into the battlefield. Good to build blockers. So you got a Planeswalker, you got a little 2/2 zombie blocker to keep it from getting slammed into the very next turn. Oath of Gideon. When Oath of Gideon enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 white core ally creature tokens in the battlefield. Again, blockers. Useful. Each Planeswalker you control enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on it. Oh my god, so much amazing interplay and synergy that goes on with some of these cards. I know if War of the Spark comes out, I really believe these are going to go go up in value. I think they're just going to be an integral part of a lot of interesting Super Friends decks that are to come. Propaganda, it's a nice pillow fort type card. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each of the creatures he or she controls that's attacking you. Very useful. Very useful to have something to make it harder for people to try to attack you if they want to. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you tap a land for mana, you can add mana. Add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. Double mana, basically. Mirari's Wake you'll see that in a lot of commander decks. I threw in a Ponder. That way, on turn 1, I can kind of decide how my next card draws are going to look, and I get to draw a card. Pretty awesome stuff, right? And then we go over here. We got board wipe. Got some creature issues. I can just decide to blow them up and keep all my planeswalkers, artifacts, and etc. Enchantments, just so, it gets rid of other people's creatures. And we've got a Proliferate card. I can draw, basically it gives me a chance to draw 2 cards and proliferate. Next one is going to be Settle the Score. Exile target creature, put 2 loyalty counters on a planeswalker you control. I mean, that right there could make it ultimate right off the bat. Next card we got is Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. Put up to 2 target creature or planeswalker cards from a graveyard into the battlefield under your control. Destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Exile Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. Very useful card. Again, I expect to see a lot of these type of cards go up in value very quickly here soon, so might want to get them right now off a TCG Player or whatever your favorite Magic the Gathering site you buy from is. Better get it now. As Proliferate card, obviously you can see what it does. Allows me to draw and proliferate. Great for Commander. Looking good. Now, let's talk about some artifacts. We got Rings of the Bright Hearth. You can see that whenever you play an activated ability, if it isn't a mana ability, I can pay 2. If I do, I can copy that ability. Let me choose new targets for the copy. Planeswalker abilities are activated abilities, so that's always a good thing. Thrawn Temporal Gateway. I may put a historic permanent card from my hand into the battlefield for 4. So and it's just for any mana, so I don't have to figure out the right mana to cast a certain planeswalker. I can just take 4 and just take a legendary planeswalker and put it into play. Contagion Engine. When Contagion Engine enters the battlefield, I put a -1 counter on each creature target player controls. And of course, for 4, I can go ahead and proliferate and then proliferate again. I can double and double. I can go ahead and add more counters to permanents. And of course, the Chain Veil. At the beginning of my end step, if you didn't activate a loyalty ability of a planeswalker, I can lose your life. But I pay 4 for each planeswalker I control. I may activate one of its loyalty abilities once this turn, as though none of its loyalty abilities have been activated this turn. Huge. Just ridiculously amazing. You can see the interplay, the synergy, the dynamic of this deck, and just see how it can just go off, rather quickly if you can get some serious things. If you get some of these combos out, I mean, guaranteed you're going to go off. Now, this one, obviously, these are we're called mana rocks. You've got Chromatic Lantern. Add 1 mana of any color, and we've got Gilded Lotus. Add 3 mana of any color. Mox Amber, this was a $3 card, but now it's like worth 15, I guess, for the new set coming out. So add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and or planeswalkers you control for free, 0. Next card is a Mind Stone. It gives me a mana source, but later game I can just go ahead and just sack it and get a card. Might be useful to get a card at some point. We got a Thrawn Dynamo. I think you know what it does. Most commander decks probably have one of these. And of course, a Soul Ring. I think you know what a Soul Ring does. Now, our non-basics. I think a lot of people are interested in what non-basics are in here. So, obviously, I got an Opal Palace. Let's see what it does. It'll give me additional counters. It also allows me to add mana of any color of my commander's color identity. Very useful. Gemstone Mine. Old card, but it allows me to deplete it. And as you can see, I can get mana of any color for 3 turns. So that's pretty useful if I have to use this card. Evolving Wilds. I'll go ahead and crack it. Go grab a basic land I need of a certain color. Myriad Landscape, you can see what it does. Allows me to go ahead and get 2 basic land cards that share a land type and put them onto the battlefield tapped. And then shuffle my library. Reflecting Pool, you can see what it does. City of Brass, some people say a City of Ass, but we'll just say a City of Brass for now. Whenever a City of Brass comes into play tapped, I can deal 1 damage to me, but it allows me to get whatever color mana I want. You can see Cascading Cataracts, what it does. Painted Bluffs. Command Tower, pretty much a staple. I think you know what that does. Shimmering Grotto. Obviously, I can pay a 1, get whatever color mana I want. Forge of Heroes. It affects the commander. I can put a +1/+1 counter on it when it enters the battlefield. Temple of the False God. Of course, I get 2 mana if I got 5 lands. Horizon Canopy. Let's see, I tap it, pay 1 life, and get a green or a white mana. And of course, it's a second ability. Canopy Vista. Of course, it enters the battlefield tapped unless I control 2 or more basic lands. Bountiful Promenade from Battle Bond comes into play untapped, dual land. Llanowar Waste, damage myself. Let's see, Woodland Cemetery. Of course, Overgrown Tomb, Concealed Courtyard, Isolated Chapel, Sea of Clouds, Prairie Stream, Sunken Hollow, Botanical Sanctum, Yavimaya Coast, Opulent Palace gives me the 3 colors there. It comes into play tapped, but you still get 3 colors out of it. Sand Step Citadel, Bojuka Bog, Misty Rainforest. Pay 1 life, you get it, you go ahead and get a basic. Comes into play on top, and of course, that's a foil forest. So you can see where we're going with this deck. I hope you enjoyed learning a few things about Super Friends here. This is going to be interesting. War of the Spark. I don't know what's going to happen here. You know, there's going to be some interesting deck builds. You can probably see which cards are now essential. If you're not going to play Planeswalkers, there's going to be a bunch of cards that are anti-Planeswalkers or causing damage or getting around ways to get rid of them or take their counters away. I imagine Vampire Hexmage is going to be worth something. I would suggest digging those out of your collection while you can get them. So check that out. And if you have any questions or would like to go ahead and make some comments on my video, please feel free to do so. Like and subscribe to my videos, and I'll be making some more here coming up. I got some more deck builds coming, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Great. Thanks a bunch. Bye now.